Hello and welcome to the weather forecast.
Hello.
I've just realised that you can actually see an empty cat bowl behind us. So this shows the level of professionalism that you've come to expect from Weather Factory.
Long-time viewers might know that we record these well before noon because that's the only way we can be reasonably assured that the cats won't kick off because it's before their lunchtime. But last night, one of our cats was quite ill. And as a result, was very hungry this morning and made representation, since the empty cat bowl. Anyway, this is the content you tune in for.
I think last time we were sort of trying to remember a name for about 60 seconds. So I think this is an improvement.
I was.
But yes, this is the semi-regular series, where we look at the top 10 upcoming games that we can see in Steam, and we try and predict their success in their first week of sale. So we always get our caveats out of the way. This is not a judgment on whether or not we think the games are any good. This is just us looking at the numbers that we can see publicly available to everybody watching this video. It's not kind of dev secret. And we try and see if there's any correlation between what we can find online and what games actually perform like. Using a little sprinkle of dev knowledge that we have gleaned from having been devs for a while.
And a disclaimer and an illumination. The disclaimer is sometimes you do as much as minutes of research on these. So if we say, I have no idea who this developer is from Korea, and someone in the comments says, well, they're literally the largest developer in Korea, you ignorant idiot, then we take that in good part because we've learned a lot from the comments on the videos. And the illumination is that our metric for a game's success is the number of reviews on Steam, which is widely held to be approximately 30 to 50 times sales. God, I can't. The formula is you have generally one review for every 30 to 50 sales of a game. Now, what varies widely depending on price.
It's hard to explain that metric. I don't know why. There's something about the formulation that is difficult.
It's because you start by you know what? Let's just get on. Right.
Because particularly a bit of humble pie for us. A bit of humble pie from last week's episode.
Yeah, we were way out.
Well, there were lots of interesting things going on, which is good. We like interesting. So let's get up the spreadsheet of dreams. Okay. The first game that we talked about last episode was Farmagia, which was this sort of JRPG thing that had a famous manga artist behind it. And we estimated somewhere between 126 and 152, so similar ballpark. And it did, in fact...
33.
So a lot lower than we were expecting. And it also is in mixed, the dreaded orange text. It's on 48%. Now, as far as I can tell, bearing in mind this is not my area of expertise at all, people seem to not like the combat, and it seems to be perceived as similar to other games that it turns out not to be similar to. So it seems like maybe a market expectation reality misfit, which doesn't mean the game itself has flaws. It just means maybe it was positioned incorrectly or the marketing was a bit confusing. I don't really know, but that has underperformed by a bit, sadly.
I think it's very often the case that super famous collaborators don't translate into commercial success. There was an indie game famously 5 or 6 or 8 years ago which had Sting as the voice artist, and it flopped because people who like Sting's music don't necessarily like obscure indie games. It just doesn't go that way. And if it's an artist, it makes a bit more sense. But again, even so, it's not like you can get into the pages of the manga that this guy writes and advertise the game from there.
Well, that was the thing. I had 2 points to that. One, you're absolutely right. If this manga artist was being used to advertise more manga, I think that would be a good thing, because if you like this guy's manga, you're a manga buyer, you're a manga reader, buy this guy's new stuff, fine. But when you cross into a different platform, when you have a manga writer advertising a game, it sounds on paper like it should work, and in my experience it never does. We've talked before about trying to advertise our games, which are Lovecraftian, to people who read H.P. Lovecraft, and that just was a total flop.
I think I saw somebody in our socials, maybe on Reddit, a little while ago, saying, funny enough, maybe it was the video comments, they'd actually come to us as a reader, but it's very much the exception rather than the rule.
Well, I'm not sure that's true, actually. I think that's exactly right. That's organic, right? So if you are the sort of person who likes Lovecraft, you probably like Lovecraftian games too. But I would suspect that this kind commenter was already playing games when he found us and thought, this is an amalgamation of my multiple interests, rather than, well, I do love Lovecraft and I have to download Steam, but I'm going to try this Lovecraftian game, which doesn't work. And the second thing I would just say about the kind of using a big name to sell something is I think there's a famous mistake that you make as a developer when you market your game, where you think that if you tweet about it, it's marketing. Social media is not marketing. Social media, even if you have a viral success, very rarely translates into actual sales on the day. There are a few significant exceptions. The most recent one is the very successful game Tiny Glade, actually, which did both loads of viral stuff online and also gangbusters at launch. But that's very rare. And
Tiny Glade, the whole thing was about the look of the game, and that was what they were.
And they did a really good job with it. They the game itself was really great, as well as the fact that it managed to capture this virality online all the time.
Well, what I mean is that what they was doing the numbers for them on socials.
Oh, I see.
Was also
actually
doing the numbers for the game. Yeah,
no, you're
what
right.
you see is what you get, and what you got was clearly.
Whereas I can see a similar mistake with getting some sort of name to advertise your game. So, for example, when we talk about getting Sting to what was it, the voiceover or the narrator or something of that game, I can see that being something that would generate a lot of press because Sting is a big name. He gets press, so I'm going to put Sting in the title of my article rather than covering an article, covering a game that no one's ever heard of and getting a percentage of the clicks. So that makes the developer or the marketing team behind that think, oh, I've done lots of marketing. That's great. I'm getting lots of buzz. But in reality, you've not actually engaged your audience because your audience are not Sting fans.
No. So, and what happens is, of course, the news posts go around saying Sting's in this game. People go, oh, Sting's that game. Hey, did you know Sting was in this game? Do they then think, well, I've always wanted a game voiced by Sting. I'm going to go and wishlist it. No. So you do get these, I think, fool's gold effects of viral successes and of rounds of interest on press. I've been in this business for 15 years, and my periods of lesser and greater success have been totally uncorrelated from press interest, except in that press interest has sometimes followed the successes, but it's much less related than people tend to think, which is visible.
Anyway, so that's just the first game we're talking about. We've got to hurry up on the other ones.
To do an extra long episode, the 3-day weather forecast. Haven and Hearth. Yeah, we got this wrong for interesting reasons.
And in a good way, we got it goodly wrong.
Yeah.
So we thought it was going to do somewhere between 89 and 120 reviews, but we did talk about how it had this like mad long legacy and it'd been running as a different game for ages. And it was clearly a
12 years as a browser game.
Bonkers. And in fact, it did.
323 reviews week one.
With an 83% success positive rating.
Yeah, so I'd already doubled my estimate from what the numbers told me it would do about 70. And I thought, oh no, it's a really solid success. It's bound to do better than that. So solid background, lots of people are doing it. So I almost doubled it. And that still was nowhere near enough because they just had a big legacy player base that wasn't immediately visible in the Steam numbers.
And I'm delighted by this because they're doing something weird and different, which is my favourite thing in games. So good for them. I'm glad that we got it wrong. Long may that continue. Coffee, please.
Yeah, this is a bit sad.
Yeah, so this was my wild card, actually. This is the sort of cosy, illuminated manager-owned coffee shop, and you've got a cat sim. And we thought it was going to do somewhere between 250 and 256 in that wide chasm. And in fact, it only did 48 reviews week one.
Yeah, so I overestimated this because I underestimated another coffee game previously that looked very simple, did it much better than I expected, and I've been looking at the differences between them and trying to learn from my mistakes. One of the things is just it seems to have been, although it's well reviewed, there were complaints that it was it didn't have that much content for the price.
Was the price wrong?
Yeah. And I think several people said, this is not very challenging, but I like this not very challenging because it's a really nice game to look at. But it wasn't that challenging. I think it just ran out of engagement. It's £11, which is not expensive for a game at all. But
if it's not a complete game,
and it is EA as well.
That's the thing.
And I think an EA low stress game is a slightly different proposition because if you run into a bug or a content boundary, you feel differently about it from if you're angrily chopping down trees and firing bows at monsters where you expect a janky product experience.
More on that later.
But
I'm sorry, Coffee Please Devs, because it's EA, they have a chance to pull it back because it might well be that once they flesh it out and they reach 1.0, it's the game of everyone's dreams. So I hope that's happened to them. Here's another one we got wrong. Hack Hub free trial.
I'm really pleased we got this wrong. So I estimated there's a gap actually. I think in the video I had only had my initial estimate and I wasn't sure about the final one. So let's say 50.
No, but you did, because we both got exactly the same number, and then we laughed about it.
Okay.
Because we do these estimates independently, but every so often we arrive on exactly the same number and then it looks like we're cheating, but we're not. We just reached the same conclusion of we thought we'd do about 50 reviews week 1.
We did more than 3 times as well.
It did 172 reviews week 1, for those of you who don't want to do maths in the morning. And it has 95% approval. So I'm putting down our total inaccuracy on this one to the fact that it's free, because it's really hard. I don't really know how free games work. I've never released a free game on Steam. Mm-hmm. So I thought that would obviously help rather than charging 100 quid for it. But
I'm taking a couple of more uplifting messages away from this as well. I noticed that they did a similar game previously that got 8 reviews week 1. So they must be very pleased with this. And 8 reviews, not week 1 all time, I think. But they partnered with a publisher who did similar games, who presumably helped and knew what they were doing, whether in the dev stage or promotion stage. But also, I was reading the reviews. People just really like it. It's clearly been really well done. No idea what the final game will be like. They might have shot their load here. But I noticed people said in the reviews there aren't many good hacking games on Steam. And it occurs to me that's true. I've played a few of them over the years. But they are not common. And people who like them tend to really like them. So this always a bright future.
Well done for finding your niche, Hot Bunny. Those are the devs. I'm not just calling them a diminutive. Zero Orders Tactics. Now this one I thought it sounded really interesting because it had this clear pitch of terraforming pressing to the breach, and you, being an actual game designer, said that there were some problems potentially with this. So we guessed between 20 and 32 reviews, and it did
35.
So we got this one right, thank God.
So I don't think problems was too strong.
I don't mean you said they were rubbish. I just meant that you said that actually it's not totally clear what that might mean or how that would mesh together.
Yeah.
Because you thought about it for more than 2 seconds, rather than maybe like, they have said 2 names. That's maths. But well done them. They got 92% positive, so that sounds like people are happy. On a less happy note, Touch Type Tail, strategic typing. We thought it would do between 40 and 107.
Yeah. And I labelled this because I thought I really liked the look of it. I thought it was very charming, and the sense of humour attached to it I liked. It was clearly very polished, but I thought the cognitive load of doing touch typing alongside strategic decisions sounds like it would be more stressful than fun. And whether that's what put people off or not in the end, I'm not sure. But it did worse than we expected with 14 reviews week 1.
Yeah, so 100% positive as well, which
So
I think is a particular kick in the gut for the devs, because they must be thinking we made a really good thing here and it just hasn't been picked up by eyeballs, because that's what eyeballs do. So I'm sorry for them. I feel like they deserve more with all the love that they put into it, but this is the reality of launching a game, and hopefully they can figure out a way to turn that one around. Ritual Night.
Yeah, so finally one that we
got Zero Orders Tactics right.
Oh, we did. Yeah, that's true. Well, but this one we bracketed. But then this was easy because this one was a student game with a sort of weird publishing situation where they couldn't publish it in all the regions.
Oh yeah,
and they clearly had very modest expectations. And for a student game, getting we guessed between 12 and 27, and it was 19 reviews week 1. So yeah, that's fine. I hope they go on to they're happy and they go on.
It will be great experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
So good for them. Then we get on to Munch and/or Munk and/or something in between from people who speak German. This was the sort of heavy metal inspired action roguelike thing. We guessed between 85 and 100 reviews, and it got
51.
So ish.
Yeah. Ish. I noticed it was in mixed 77%.
That's not mixed.
Sorry, mostly positive. 77%.
How dare you, sir? We have been on 77% many times, and that's an excellent score.
They mostly positive. The art style clearly slaps, as I understand the youth say. And
hello, fellow kids.
And some of the reviews said it was quite buggy.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. Is it early access? I think it is.
No.
No, it's not. Okay.
Maybe that's why.
And I did notice what somebody said. I bought this game just on the based on the art style, and the art style's great.
It is
And
gorgeous.
the developer actually responded and said, "Thank you. We tried to make it as metal as possible." So it's made with love.
They did it amazing. I really like the art. I am in art director mode at the minute, and I am particularly impressed by this one. Okay, so the penultimate one. This is an interesting one. If sun sets, this was your wild card.
It was my wild card. And
Sounds
sad
like-
balloon noise.
No, well, not necessarily.
Well, the point is, it did fine, but it didn't actually do the numbers. So our numbers were, I estimated 600.
And I estimated 400, and it did 345 week one, with a 62% mixed rating. Now, a couple of things here. It is early access, which tends to have a more bumpy ride because it's not properly finished yet, of course. And I believe it is co-op, which also tends to have a bumpy ride. So I think that probably explains the mix.
So I dug out something from the reviews that might account for this. I haven't confirmed it, but 2 people in the reviews complained that co-op,
I saw this too.
you could only have 2 players.
Yeah, but it shows 5 players in the trailers.
So things like Valheim or Enshrouded, which are the gold standard of co-op online games, bloody love Enshrouded. The online sort of build, explore, level up games. A big part of the appeal is having this sort of cooperative environment that you can do builds together. I mean, I play Enshrouded solo because I'm a miserable introverted bastard, but I know this is a lot of the appeal, and I think that probably didn't help. It is apparently a bit buggy because it's an early access multiplayer build game, but that obviously dragged the score down a bit. So,
but a solid launch.
Launch.
Again, to benchmark, we say any game that we would expect somewhere between 100 and 500 reviews week one is a solid launch, depending on how many people are on the game and how the publisher and all the kind of variables going on behind the scenes. But 3, 4, 5 week one is a good early access launch. What that tells you is people like the game, especially early access. So there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, I agree.
And the final game, here's one that we got really wrong. This is Skill Legends Royale, which I know nothing about.
So
auto chess.
I believe you said the dragon has awoken, right?
Yeah. So this is a Chinese developer. We guess between 93 and 150 reviews. And again, bearing in mind the benchmark that we just said of 100 to 500 reviews week one is what you kind of expect for a good solid indie launch. This one got
671.
Now, I would not look at Skill Legends Royale and think that's going to do better than every other indie game that I really see on Steam. And then I remember China.
I think
it's amazing, and everyone loves auto chess.
That's the other thing. So
I don't know.
I think I barely understand the affordances and complexities of auto chess games.
We did get some very helpful comments explaining it.
Yeah. And I think it may just be really well designed as well. But
so yeah, I don't really know why, but well done them. And what do I know about chess?
It's nothing to do with chess.
I know.
Okay, sorry.
But thanks for
sorry, but now a man has explained it.
Yeah, now we can confirm that is true. Okay, on to the new set of 10 games. Now, again, just to remind everybody, our list might differ slightly from your list. You can see your Steam most popular upcoming games by scrolling to the bottom of the Steam homepage and having a look at your tab. It will be different, bearing in mind where you are in the world. They're regionally produced, but broadly speaking, games that have particular popularity often have popularity in multiple places. So it's probably very similar, even if it's not exactly the same, to the list that you see. So we are starting with Follow the Meaning.
Now, I really like the tone of this. I'm working hard.
The melancholy, spooky tone.
I'm working hard to forgive the capitalisation issues.
Yes, I'm obsessed.
What is it? What is it, guys? I mean, okay, you've stylistically decided it's going to be lowercase t, lowercase m, but then in the introduction immediately below, it's title case. So
maybe they're visually minded artists who don't have time for language.
Well, whatever. I forgive them because they're clearly doing something interesting. I don't know how anyway, probably it won't do that great because it's point and click on Steam just tends not to. But I noticed that the publisher apparently also published the Rusty Lake games.
I think only one Rusty Lake game.
Only one Rusty Lake.
Yeah.
Fine.
Oh, I do apologise.
And it's all a lie, Lottie. And
just to be clear, that was Follow the Meaning's trailer playing. It wasn't like I'm playing a game in the background of doing this video.
And it's Follow the Meaning's trailer saying it's all a lie. I wasn't telling my wife that she's being mendacious. Okay, publisher did at least one Rusty Lake game. They have some experience in this kind of thing. It's really distinctive. The numbers are decent. I'm going to put my money on 80 reviews week one.
Very similarly, I came out with 81 reviews week 1.
There we go.
Point and click games are absolutely infamous for selling on Steam. They tend just not to do very well. They had a heyday with the heights of LucasArts and games like Monkey Island. They still do quite well in Germany, as far as I'm aware. But other than that, it's very difficult to do lots of money and lots of units with a point and click game, even if they are beautifully and lovingly made like this one. So it does have 22 languages. I think it's just worth calling that one out because that's very impressive.
It's very impressive. I think my sense is that languages are a multiplier, or not even a multiplier, but they start kicking in when you've actually got some success, because I don't think the visibility.
No, it's not that. You're absolutely right. The only reason I mentioned the languages is because if a game does very well, there are no barriers if you have multiple languages. And one of the things that certainly we have been frustrated by with our games, because they are very text heavy, is we can never really launch with multiple languages at release, because it would literally take us at least another 6 months, which as an indie studio we sort of can't really afford. But we have seen a lot of demand internationally that does not result in buying at launch, because it's only in English, which is totally understandable, but it's this frustrating gatekeeping effect. Whereas if you do very well and you have lots of languages, there's nothing to stop you doing, exponentially well. But yes, okay, 80 or 81, which one is right? The stakes are high. Next game, Kota's New Journey.
I'm very confused by this.
So, hang on. I suppose what we need, something I haven't used in a while.
Yeah. The porn bell.
The porn bell. Well, sort of. So it is porny, as anyone who's looking at the first screenshot will immediately see. But it's also sort of funny porn and also not that porny.
Yeah, so the trailer, if you're at all curious about this, watch the trailer.
Not while at work.
Not while at work, but it's genuinely funny.
And it's not, it's explicit.
Explicit is strong. It is...
That's what I mean, it's not.
Oh, see, sorry, yes.
Because when Steam does porn games...
Yeah, you know about it. And this is, I think, describes itself as lewd, but it's not that lewd. And I think...
it's quite lewd.
So the point is, it's got a lady waggling her bum at you, and apparently she loses her swimsuit.
There's quite a lot of penis jokes.
There's a number of penis jokes, but no actual penises are visible in the trailer. And there's a small girl follows you around at some point, which seems like it's meant to be a bit of a damper on things.
And just to be clear, it has nothing to do with any of the lewd parts of the game.
No.
That's made very clear.
And so the whole thing, I'm not sure to what degree it's a joke and to what degree it's a porny joke. And it's apparently only an hour long, but it's got very good traction for a first-time dev for a game that was clearly made for not very much money.
I get the sense that this has some sort of history on internet forums, because there is a mention of game dev, as in GAM DEVV, that forum site, in one of the updates, and there's some sort of community victory they talk about. So there is some sort of discourse about this game that I'm not aware of, and maybe it has come out of a particular community on a particular website, which would explain why it's got a significant...
So I might be dead wrong in what I'm about to say then, but I'm just going to cut my initial estimate in half, because I assume that you always talk about the dog multiplier on games, and people see a dog in the game and they think, ooh, good boy, and they click wish list, and then when it comes to actually buying the game, they think, oh yeah, I don't like dogs enough just to buy the game. And I think the same thing is true if it's sort of a bit porny and somebody's feeling horny. And
well, because the wish list,
but then when it comes to actually playing the game and it turns out to be a sort of potentially extended gag, I think they might lose interest. So I'm going to cut my estimate in half and call it 32.
It is free.
Oh, I missed that.
So I think that...
Well, I'm going to formally revise my estimate back up to 62 then.
Just because, the combination of bums and not having to pay anything for it is quite a potent combination.
Yeah, well, part of the reason I took the numbers down is they say it's only an hour long, but obviously if it's free, that makes odds.
So
62.
As we have established, we're bad at predicting free games because we don't make them. But yes, you guess 62. I guess 84. Similar ballpark. There's some history here that we don't understand, but we will see.
Hard chip.
You say that again.
Hard chip. Hard chip
is for the nerds.
I don't know what you mean.
This is a realistic build your own microprocessor chip thing And it makes me think of PC Simulator, which is absolutely brilliant, but I suspect it's not as involved or as pretty.
So PC Simulator, I think PC Simulator basically is one of those mechanic games where you there's puzzle elements.
Oh, you twizzle screwdrivers.
But you twizzle screwdrivers,
Right.
and it's very high fidelity 3D graphics, and also I think they made a lot of money from getting sponsorships from
Yes.
the PC manufacturers. This looks more like, if I say Zach-like. Right, Zach, I can't remember his surname, is a small dev with an outfit called Zachtronics.
I've heard of Zachtronics.
There we go. So it's puzzly games that require a lot of programmer-like thinking, and I think Zach's games usually do sort of 1,000+ reviews. They're not wildly successful. There's just not that big a market for these very intense puzzly things, but they're well regarded. He really has pumped them out. So he's done a lot of very varied, always intelligent work, and this looks in that tradition. So I think there's an audience for it, and you will know within seconds of starting to watch
If
this
this is
trailer
for you.
if this is for you or not.
Which is a real strength.
But I noticed that it just doesn't have that much traction. The demo, according to SteamDB, hit 18 players at its peak. And
I saw that.
Normally single digits. So I'm going to guess 30 reviews week one.
And I'm guessing 37 for similar reasons. It's early access as well, although depending on the price point they choose, that might be a benefit for people who think this is the sort of thing they like, but they'll play it when it's ready.
Again, if you've watched this show before, you'll know that I almost always estimate lower than Lottie because of the tormented melancholy of my wild Celtic soul.
By seven reviews this time. So
It's a mystic number.
The tormented melancholy is really affecting you. But we wish it the best. On to something almost comedically different. Toastercide. Mortem fulmine.
Which I understand is death by lightning or death by electricity, technically. But that's the Latin.
This is bonkers.
This is bonkers. It reminds me a lot of a game called Iron Bread from, I think, the now defunct Bossa Studios long ago. It's sort of the inverse of that, obviously, because you are now, you were the bread, now you're the toaster. I think in Iron Bread, you actually were you trying to get toasted, possibly? This, you're trying to fling yourself into a bath. It looks fun. I like it. It's a small, if not solo, dev.
It's solo.
It's solo.
It's one person, yeah.
Who's,
Known only as the chairman.
Only as the chairman. He's been doing their best to promote it across all channels they've got. They're a small dev. This is the first game, so they just don't have that much traction. So I am going to guess 14 reviews week one.
Now, I would have guessed something very similar had I not done literal minutes of research and discovered that despite what SteamDB tells me, this developer has said that he has 6,000 wish lists.
Really?
That's what he says. At the start of November, the developer says he has 6,000 wish lists, which is significantly more than SteamDB thinks that he has. So I've bumped it up all the way from 15, which would be my original estimate, to 40.
So just revealing the inner motions of our complex algorithm here. SteamDB won't actually tell you wish lists; it will tell you followers.
And it's not the only one. There's lots of sites that do it, and people say which ones are more accurate.
But the point is that followers have a sort of fairly consistent relationship to wish lists, but by no means very consistent. So it's entirely possible there's a lot more wish lists than that suggests. I am surprised, especially because the demo also doesn't have much traction.
But
I don't think you'd fib about it.
Well, I was going to say when you talked about the dog demultiplier fake wishlist thing.
I see. Yeah.
I think often the wishlist button functions a bit like on social media, the like button. I think what you say is this is the sort of thing that I approve of or I find funny or I like. So, for example, Mimi games, I would guess, have a higher number of wish lists and a lower number of sales in terms of conversion than a sort of incredibly serious, heartfelt game. Because I think people are more likely to be like, Lamau, it's got bums in it, I'm going to wishlist it, than this is a hard-hitting anti-war game, even if one game is much better than the other, and more people end up buying the serious game than the fun game when it comes to actually parting with their hard-earned cash for it. And I think this game is immediately arresting in terms of interest. I've not seen playing a murderous toaster before. It's funny and it's pretty. So I think this probably wishlists quite well,
Charlotte
even if it doesn't convert.
That remark about the wishlist button, I've been working with you since 2015, and I think that might be the most insightful thing you've ever said about game development.
I think that's quite insulting, viewers. You decide.
And I think it was really insightful.
Is the rest of the time you just hear me going, "Oui, Mimzola"?
What was that, dear?
"Oui, Mimzola." Just an insight into our relationship here. There is a running gag. There was an RPG that I can't remember the name of back in the day.
It was Sidney's Pirates.
Was it Sidney's
I think
Pirates?
So, yeah.
Which basically ran out of cash, and as a result, they had to cut a bunch of corners. One of the corners they cut was they cut all of the voice acting for any of the female NPCs. So in the end, all the only women in the game were like, I don't know, like scrubbing floors or like your wife or like playing the lute, and all they could say was "Oui, Mimzola," which has become the generic female sound effect of my life.
Well, I was trying to give you a compliment.
Well, thank you, darling.
Interested.
No, I'll take it. I'll take the love crumb. Anyway, Toastercide, I think 40. We will see.
The Cold White, not to be confused with the Long Dark, or indeed Green Hell. So
I'm being the wind. I'm being the cold wind.
I thought you were being a magic verb.
Yeah, maybe a magic verb, but I can't see it in screenshots.
So this is a game where the trailer shows you cutting down trees, and then after that it shows you building a wooden house by rotating a sort of green overlay to match the half-built existing wooden house. So you know,
you know where you are.
You know where you are with this. You know what you're doing. It's also got some sort of spooky story associated with it. And again, you know, we've seen games like this before. I think it might be quite good. I can't tell because I've seen other games like it. It is launching into early access, which these kind of games generally do. And from the numbers, I'm going to guess that it's going to be maybe 90 reviews week one. Now, I estimated a little bit low initially, and then I looked at the curve of the followers on the SteamDB, the curve, and I noticed that they'd had a sort of gentle growth, and then in the last couple of months, it's increased quite dramatically. Not to particularly extraordinary numbers, but the up curve is noticeable. That suggests that whatever they are putting out, people are responding to it and liking it. So I think it would do a bit better. So 90 is my guess.
So unusually, I'm more negative than you are, but only a bit. I guess 74, just because you're more into the survival games than I am.
I played a lot of survival games and I really like them, but I have to say, as soon as I see that you have to cut down a tree in a game, my interest starts to wane.
Is that not how Enshrouded starts?
Actually, Enshrouded, you start by picking up twigs. No, you do cut down trees.
No, I wasn't being mean. I was saying because, you know, obviously you love that game, and that's doing.
I do. No, so you do have to cut down trees in Enshrouded. You have to cut down fewer trees than in most games of that kind. And I liked Enshrouded because it was so distinctive straight away. It's got a strong narrative start. The art style is distinctive. The way it uses the vertical space for Menace is distinctive. Honestly, I could talk about it for the rest of the broadcast. I'm not going to do that because we're talking about the Cold White, which I hope does really well, and I'm going to guess does 90, which is a perfectly respectable first week start for a small studio.
Good luck to these Turkish developers.
And you were 74, right?
I said 74, yes. Yep. Now we get onto a really weird one. I don't know what to make of this.
So what if, right, we put boobs on a fox and you could talk to other people who were also animals and also had boobs in our next game?
I quit. Well, the factory is dissolved. End of meeting. Thank you for everyone who's witnessed this.
So I'm one of these games that makes me feel old. It looks quite graphically primitive. I
think it must be deliberately going for like the PlayStation 2 vibe, because when I looked at this first, and maybe this is deeply offensive to anybody who has actually played this game more than I have, it made me think of Crash Bandicoot. And not because I find Crash Bandicoot sexually attractive, because I don't. I think he's like a fox guy.
Does he have boobs?
He doesn't have any boobs, but then I don't particularly like boobs, so you know, whatever. But the whole kind of it's an action RPG. It made me think of Crash Bandicoot, so I think it's a deliberate homage to the PS2 graphics rather than they just didn't have an artist.
The early access details use the first person singular, so it may be a solo dev, so that may also be part of the.
Impressive.
It's very detailed in the early access about exactly how much work there is to do. Whether it's accurate, I don't know. Early access details often aren't, but clearly it's somebody's thought about the details of it and how it's going to work. It's got good traction. It's got a lot going on. People obviously like it.
I do not understand the traction. Now, this is not me hating on the game. This is not a game for me, but I think Steam is a healthy, multifaceted marketplace, giving everybody what they want. But
I've never heard you sound more like Miss Jean Brody.
But behind the scenes, it's got way more traction than I would expect just from looking at the Steam page and what I can see, which is not, I just don't really get it. So maths tells me that I should be estimating 676 reviews week 1, which would be an amazing success, and I just won't do that. I can't do that. I don't understand why that would be the case. So it may be the case that there's a really burgeoning sub community that I'm just not aware of. Like when we started this series, I think one of the first games we estimated was a backroom game. It was called something like Flood or something, and it did way better than we expected because we were not aware of this very bubbly Reddit subreddit full of liminal space games, and actually this had just been a really well made liminal space game and everyone wanted it, so we were like, oh, it's just a game where you're in an empty room, is that fun? And everyone was like, yes, give us more. And this may be the same thing. There may be something going on behind the scenes I'm just not aware of that means this game has all the buzz, but it clearly does have some buzz, and I don't get why. So I'm just estimating 150 because I just cannot believe 676, but I'm willing and interested to be proven totally wrong.
Huzzah. Yeah, I'm guessing 500.
So did you get distracted?
I was thinking about trees.
Cutting down trees.
I was thinking about silver birches and how they look pretty, but they look less pretty close up because the bark peels off.
Is this a lie?
It's an elaboration. I was thinking about trees,
okay.
But I do also think that about silver birches. I think about silver birches a lot.
Okay, well, we'll come back to this in a private conversation. Let's move on publicly to Lost But Found.
Yeah, so this just... Do you want to start?
I think it's interesting. I've not seen a game that looks like it, which is always a good position to be in. It is I don't really understand who's making it. I think it might be a developer publisher, kind of the same outfit that does both. They published Dice and Fold, which we reviewed a while ago. They did very well. So I don't know if those people are working on this game or what's happening there.
Dice and Fold was, the actual developer was Tiny Mice.
Was it?
Yeah, and the publisher is Rogue Duck. So again, we're continuing our animal theme.
But there isn't a separate developer listed that I could find, so I don't really know who's making it. But it looks well made and it looks unusual. It is an unusual mashup of a job sim with a hidden object game. Hidden object games typically don't do terribly well on PC. In my experience, they seem to be more kind of mobile focused. But maybe this mashup will suit it. My concern, looking at the screenshots, such as I am a game designer, even though I'm not at all, is that it might get a bit samey in terms of the game loop, but I haven't played it, so it might be the funnest thing ever, and I don't know. But looking at the numbers, I'm going to guess 50 reviews week 1, because I think it's quite niche, and I am not seeing a huge amount of buzz behind the scenes.
So I underestimated. Lottie just noticed and has exposed the lead that I guess also gets 50 reviews week 1.
Sorry.
Well, this is so. Why do you keep playing the
I don't know. I'm so sorry. This is so stressful.
Yeah, so 50 for me is sort of slightly more of a vote of confidence because I'm so negative because we established the wild melancholy of my tormented Celtic soul. But I underestimated how well Dice and Fold would do, I remember. I think it's instructive to compare this to Touch Type Tale, the game about typing and making decisions last time that didn't do so well. Because I think, obviously, you're making decisions quickly and you're doing lots of things, but the decisions you're making are all about the things you're looking at. So you are under a more pleasant type of stress where you're not trying to use two different bits of your mind to make two different kinds of decisions. That is my sense from looking at it. I haven't played the demo. I think it will come together. I don't see it being that successful. It clearly, well, it appears to be just quite a slight game. I wouldn't be surprised to see it on mobile or Switch. I know, because I guess you need to mouse it. Anyway, I'm rambling now. So I think 50 is a good number for what seems like a polished, well thought through game. I have some concerns about the ethics of it, because apparently you're a lost and found officer who can also sell things at the black market.
Well,
I don't think that's right, Lottie. But what can I say? Steam is full of deviant behaviour.
I think it's a nice little game about selling small, pretty things.
Yeah, to crooks.
Okay, so moving on to crooks and demons and sin. Sin Slayers, Reign of the 8th.
So there's a story here. I was looking into it, and so first of all, the dev is called Goon Swarm, and if you are old internet, you'll remember Goon being a term associated with Something Awful forums, who back in the day were a bit of a force to be reckoned with, and Goon Swarm being the name of the Something Awful forum spawned EVE Online corporation, which took significant parts in the in various corporate wars over the years. Now, I'd like to imagine anybody from 20 years ago or 20 years from now understanding any of what I've just said.
I was thinking that requires a lot of cognitive load.
But it's all irrelevant because Goonswarm appears to be a small Russian team that has absolutely nothing to do with Something Awful forums. It was just like the name.
It's a fun name.
It is a fun name. And it says Sin Slayers, there's an implied colon, Reign of the 8th. So I assume there must have been a Sin Slayers.
I can tell you about that. There is. Weirdly, it's on GOG. It's not on Steam. It is also on console and Switch. And this is a revamped version of the original Sin Slayers, which is now coming to Steam. So I don't understand why the original.
Well, I understand a little more, having done almost 6 minutes of research.
Whoa!
I should have done 8 to be thematic.
Whoa!
But Sin Slayer's original flavour disappeared from Steam in 2021, having come out in 2019.
What did it do wrong?
As far as from looking at the forums, what people seem to think have happened is that Black Tower Entertainment, who were the original publisher, had a disagreement with Steam, which some people say was something to do with asset reuse. But I have no firm information that might not be true at all, and the whole thing might be a misunderstanding.
Yeah. But
Black Tower's other games disappeared from Steam at the same time. There was no explanation ever given, and then the devs, in quite a sort of entertaining, taciturn Russian tone, start turning up. I think earlier this year and saying it's coming back. There will be news, and apparently they managed to get the rights back from the publishers.
Oh, that's nice.
And they republished it. They got approval from Steam to republish it.
This would make sense then.
So the actual traction visible from things like follower numbers and the demo is not striking. But I'm going to assume that because there was quite a lot of love for the original game in the forums, people were sad to see it go, and we're still sort of coming back to talk about it. So I'm going to go as high as 70 for week 1.
Well, my review is probably wrong then, because I've just gone on the numbers I could find online. But if there is an existing community, particularly that who feel that the developers have been wronged in some way, that often encourages people to be more voluble and buy more at launch. And I hope the devs have every success if this backstory is true. I'm only guess 44 week 1 reviews, just because I didn't know any of this before I did my estimate. But maybe they will smash it. We will see.
You'll see.
Wild Country. This is the game out of all the games this episode that I think has the most obvious money. I think the art is gorgeous. They are first-time developers as far as I can tell, but they come from a Singaporean incubator and publisher who publish lots of other moneyed games. You talk. You have feelings on this. Yeah,
I like bicycles and I like rainbows. But if you said we like a bicycle rainbow, I'd say no, thank you. I don't think cozy competitive particularly flies. There was a debate, and I think on our subreddit a little while ago about whether Book of Hours, our game, if you haven't played it, you should, is really a cozy game. And I think cozy means different things to different people, to be fair. One is the art style. You look at the art style, this is clearly a cozy game. It looks cartoony, it looks child friendly, it doesn't look like it will upset you or be grimdark or any of those things. Another thing it means is pleasantly low challenge. So Darkest Dungeon or Crypt of the Necromancer are not cozy. They're intended to make you gnash your teeth with frustration. And part of the cozy revolution over the last couple of years, I think, a lot of it has been a response, a reaction to the rise of roguelikes before that.
And Souls-likes.
And Souls-likes, and tactical games where you have to make difficult decisions, like there's board games where you have to decide where to put your dice, and there's never enough dice to go around, so you're limiting it. So I think a lot of cozy games, it's much more about being able to have a comforting game you can keep doing. You can go back and pick your strawberries or whatever the following day, or make sure the roof's back on, without worrying about whether the creeps are going to overrun you and you're going to run out of rations. And one of the ways in which people said Book of Hours is arguably not a cozy game is that it's intentionally taxing and requires you to learn a lot and pay attention to and read everything, but it is cozy in that you can't die, and there's lots of ways to achieve any given thing, and actually once you realise the days pass, and it doesn't matter, you always do things tomorrow, then it's more relaxed. But there's so exactly what they mean by cozy competitive is not certain if it's just the art style, but I think the other two kinds of things, the low challenge or the sense of peace, don't go well with competitive, because even Monopoly has been known to cause divorce, and people don't teabag each other in cozy games. So I think this is a couple of different concepts where the vibes don't vibe.
That's interesting.
So I'm going to guess, because it's got decent traction and because it's clearly professionally made, 25 reviews week one.
I mean, everything that you've just talked about with the sort of cozy competitive stuff is what I personally ran into when we were marketing Book of Hours. I did try for a while to market it to cozy fans and to cozy communities because it was a specific departure from what we were doing with Culture Simulator, which absolutely was not cozy, and because there is, we did in Book of Hours make sure that it wasn't punishing. I think that was a word that we used a bunch internally. Whereas Culture Simulator was designed to be punishing, because of course if you punish people, you also massively reward them if they then succeed and beat the game, whereas the Book of Hours, you wanted it to be a gentler experience. So I felt there was some sort of parallel with the existing cozy blossoming in games, but what I discovered very quickly was exactly as you say, that cozy seemed to really be a synonym for not particularly challenging, and Book of Hours is not punishing, but it is challenging. It is a very difficult game in that respect, even if the sort of lose state is you didn't complete that recipe successfully or something. So I agree, I think it is a slight oddity in the design, but you've said everything already.
I want to. It's clearly a professionally made game by people who know what they're doing. It looks well funded. I feel constrained to say I could be underestimating the ingenuity they put into this, and it could all mesh much better. Minutes of research, people. But
again, it's not about you estimating. It's not about you evaluating the design or the quality of the game. What we're saying, as we put ourselves in the position of a gamer on Steam, browsing Steam, and we look at what that gamer is going to see, and when you look at this, you think this is a cozy game. So anybody who's not interested in cozy games is presumably not going to stay much longer on the Steam page to read more about whether or not it's actually a bit different. They're going to think it's a cozy game, it's not for me. Whereas if you are a cozy game fan, you're going to think, ooh, this is nice, there are some anthropomorphic animals who can wear little hats, that sounds fun. And then you're going to see, ooh, actually it's a sort of competitive PvP card game thing. Is that really what I like? Maybe it is, but I don't think you're being
No, but I just want to express humility. I don't want to sound like I'm being down on these folks, but especially because what I was also about to say is, often when you see an interesting genre mashup, there are a couple of common reasons why that's the case. One is, and we saw this with Zero, whatchamacallit,
Zero
Orders Tactics. It's because somebody has an interesting idea that won't let go of them. Often also, it's because you want to say something that a publisher hasn't heard before.
Yes.
What if X but Y is a high concept thing,
Yeah.
which, notoriously do or we are told you do in Hollywood as well. What I know about Hollywood could be written on my fingernail. But so I wonder if this is a pitch that might land better with publishers and Steam players. But we'll see. 25 is my guess. Yours is?
I guess 34. And all I'll say is that at least one person needs to buy it because they need to pay the artist to finish the bottom of the bear in the capsule art, because it's really upsetting me that all the other animals have a full body and this bear, who does look grumpy, and I can see why, because he doesn't have a bottom or any legs, and I feel we need to pay the artist to complete him.
Maybe he's just being dreamt by the raccoon in the foreground.
Maybe this game has serious depth and we are just not getting it. Anyway, report,
I
comments.
didn't even notice this.
I can't not. It's what I stare at now when I look at the Steam page. Right, final game of our week's selection: Claymores of the Lost Kingdom.
So I thought of two things when I was watching the trailer. One is Darkest Dungeon really was an influential game, wasn't it? And the other is I can only see one Claymore.
Well, maybe they're only showing, level 1. Maybe by the time you're in level 99,
It's called Claymores.
You're clanking down the halls.
It's not called at some point you'll get Claymores. I suppose it's the Lost Kingdom. So once you've found the kingdom...
Exactly, that's what the Claymores are.
You know what Claymore means?
It's a big, straight, heavy sword, isn't it?
It is, but it literally, it's the Gaelic, it literally means big sword. Anyway...
They were straightforward folk.
I think this one is a nice... a nice comparison with the previous one, because actually if you look at follower numbers and demo activity, there's no demo activity, forum activity, there's a similar sort of level of traction visible on each. But
with Wild Country? With
Wild Country, but Wild Country is a fair sized professional team with a lot of funding. This is, I think, one person, again, certainly a small team. It looks like they are associated with a co-working residential space in Sweden where people go to chill. All the communications look enthusiastic and sort of one-on-one. And on this, I think the vibes do vibe. I think this is RPG, tick, progression, tick, deck builder, tick, roguelike, tick, sandbox, tick, craft, build, level up. These are all things that go together. You expect to hear these things alongside each other. And if it's well designed, then it will play well. And this is obviously somebody who knows what they're doing and is enthusiastic about doing it. I think in actual practical terms, that won't make this much odds, because neither of these games has an enormous amount of traction. I think if this is a single developer...
Well, they say we in the sub things. I think it's probably small.
Oh, fine. Fine. Well, if it's a small...
But certainly a small team.
Yeah, then with co-working space, then I think maybe 35 reviews week 1, and I think they should be very satisfied with that. It'd be a solid success. So, like I said, I think this is in some ways the opposite of the last game, tonally as well. This is meant to be a bit of a grimdark vibe. But I think in actual practical terms, it will make only a bit of difference.
Yeah, similarly, I've estimated 33 reviews week 1. It made me think of Slay the Princess, weirdly, just because of the art style. They do a lot with a little, and some of the stuff they do a lot with is this detailed, stylized 2D animation stuff, which I think is very impressive for a small studio to sort of... I love when people do a lot with a little, right? That's always... because I come from a production background, so I'm impressed by that. I agree. I think the vibes are a big selling point. The only other thing I'd add is the developers have produced a couple of games before on Steam, and they are all card games. So I suspect that the design of the game will actually be pretty good, because they do specialise in card games. So maybe this will do better than the numbers, because as ever, when you launch, you get this opportunity to be presented to the Steam audience that has never heard of you before. Because up until this point, all of your marketing efforts are about getting eyeballs on your Steam page and getting your name known and getting streamers to play it and getting the word out. But ultimately, the real test is when you put it on the front page of Steam, even if you only happen to have, literally 5 minutes on the front page of Steam, the people who happen across you, which is a very large number of people because Steam has a massive audience, what do they think of it? And some games have have done way better than the numbers would suggest prior to launch, because they've made a game that resonates with the Steam audience. I think we reviewed a game called Megaloot a while ago, which is one of these that didn't really have much buzz behind the scenes because it was a first time or a very small team or something. But when it was presented to Steam was like, yes, this is cool, I like this. And it did fantastically well. So it might be the case that this is one of them. It does look like quite a lot of games that I have seen before, which might be desperately unfair. I am not a big fan of this genre, so I haven't played a lot, but on the surface I get Darkest Dungeon, I get Grimdark, I get roguelike, deck builder, but there's a hell of a lot of people who love that stuff, so maybe it will exceed.
I feel like deck builders are finally past their peak, not because people have stopped liking them, just because the market is
so
glutted.
Saturated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think you have to fight harder and harder to stand out, whereas we were talking earlier about hacker sims, and there are not a lot of hacker sims still. So I was tempted to pick this as my wild card, but I'm not, just on the basis
do wild cards.
Yeah, we do.
Shoot.
Just on the basis that I think it's up against so many really good competitors.
I agree. I think it's really difficult for roguelike deck builders these days.
So I was tempted to pick ATLYSS as my wild card, just to annoy my wife. But
are you going to pick ATLYSS?
No, because I don't want to annoy my wife, because I love her.
She's making dinner tonight, so
and the happy life, happy wife. Oh wait, no. The Lost but Found is my wild card,
because it's unusual and could.
It's unusual, and I couldn't make up my mind about it. I kept looking at it and thinking, this is a flash game ported to mobile, and then I kept looking and thinking, there's some really judicious decisions in the design of this, and it is a bit unusual. So yeah, Lost but Found.
And I'm going to pick Hard Chip, because
Say that again.
Hard Chip, because I think it is a Steam-friendly genre. All of it will be how it's presented and how it's designed. And I have learned from Train Simulator 2 that just because I think it looks like a nerd game, therefore nerd people will like it, is nonsense thinking. But I do think it has the potential to be really fun for a specific niche. So I'm interested to see how that one does. All right. Well, that is our 10 games from this week's selection. I'm sorry this is a slightly later episode. We did selfishly go on holiday, which we really needed. But that's why we are slightly behind. But I thought that results from the previous episode's games were particularly unusual. Maybe that's because we were, boat happy.
Improving homily about the aurora.
If you must.
We went to Norway to see the aurora because we had been to Iceland twice to see the aurora. We'd always wanted to see the aurora borealis, and the aurora borealis
didn't want to see us.
And so we went to Tromsø, which is up in the Arctic Circle, and is a sort of the aurora capital of the world.
It's magical.
It's the solar maximum, so this is the best chance of seeing the aurora. But we tried to see the aurora on 3 occasions. The third occasion, we went on a lovely cruise on an electric boat, had a nice dinner, and the whole sky was coated with clouds all night. We saw nothing. The second time we tried to see the aurora, we went out on what was described as an aurora safari with a bunch of us in a minibus and drove all the way across Norway looking for patches of clear sky until we got to
Finland, a frozen lake in Finland.
We had to take our passports to Finland
at 2 a.m. in the morning.
And the enthusiastic lady in front of the bus kept saying, "Get out, you can see the aurora." And we'd see the aurora through a patch of the sky for a few minutes. It was gorgeous and
it was
worth
subtle.
it. Sorry?
It was subtle and beautiful and
It was subtle and beautiful, and we were by a frozen lake in the middle of the night, so that was great. But the first night we were there, we walked out of an Asian fusion restaurant near where we were staying, and Lottie said, "Look up," and the sky is clear, and there's the aurora right above us, and it looks like somebody's painted a phoenix green, and then made it dance.
It was dynamic and clear and really close and absolutely beautiful. And it's only in hindsight that we realise how rare that is, especially over a city. Well, it's not a city, it's a town, but over a built-up area with lights. And the aurora was just like, I am happening here today, and we happened to be in exactly the right place to see it.
So there's probably more about game dev there. There's probably more about always looking up. But I'll leave you to draw the moral from the homily.
Well, thank you for watching. As ever, please put any comments you have about any of the games, this or last episode, or anything we got wrong, which is probably quite a lot. We always want to know and learn more. We will be back in another couple of weeks to see how this lot did and to give you 10 new popular upcoming games from the wonderful marketplace of Steam.
Thank you for your eyes.
Bye for now.